Human behavior often feels complicated, unpredictable, and wildly inconsistent. Yet Robert B. Cialdini reveals an influence that beneath our daily choices lie deep psychological triggers shaping how we say yes, how we follow, how we trust, and how we comply. These forces operate silently, not because people are foolish, but because the human mind is designed to conserve energy by relying on cognitive shortcuts, patterns, and emotional cues. When we understand how these psychological levers work, we recognize not only how others influence us, but how we influence them, often without realizing it. Throughout the modern world, whether in the sales tactics of multinational corporations, the viral patterns of social media, or the political strategies of global leaders, these principles play out with startling consistency, shaping everything from the memes we share to the brands we buy. If this is your first time, subscribe so you don't miss out. Let's continue. One of the foundational insights of the book is that people are wired to rely on rules of thumb, mental shortcuts that simplify decision-making. These shortcuts help us function in an overstimulated world, but they also open doors for manipulation when someone understands how to pull the right emotional string. The most profound realization is that learning these principles does not make someone manipulative. Rather, it makes them aware of how influence operates so they can use it ethically and protect themselves from exploitation. Influence is not inherently good or bad. It is a tool, and its impact depends on intent. The first psychological force that threads through human behavior is the desire to reciprocate. Reciprocity fuels trust because human societies have survived for centuries by rewarding cooperation. When someone does us a favor, extends kindness, or offers value, our instinct compels us to return the gesture, even if the initial favor was minor or unsolicited. This instinct explains why people often feel indebted after receiving free samples at a grocery store, or why a small gift from a salesperson increases the likelihood of a purchase. Recent examples abound. Digital creators who offer free value, guides, templates, lessons, or entertainment often build massive loyal followings because their audience feels a sense of reciprocal gratitude. Many subscription services use free trials for the same reason. By giving first, they trigger a powerful emotional obligation. But reciprocity goes deeper than transactions. It influences global diplomacy, workplace culture, and community life. Countries often assist one another during natural disasters not only out of compassion, but because mutual aid strengthens alliances. Employers who invest in their employees, through mentorship, flexibility, or recognition, create teams that willingly go the extra mile, because emotional reciprocity builds loyalty stronger than any contract. Even in personal relationships, partners who consistently give without keeping score inspire the same generosity in return, strengthening bonds. Cialdini demonstrates that this instinct to give back is so deeply rooted that it can override logic, strategy, and even personal interest. Understanding this allows individuals to recognize moments when reciprocity is being used for manipulation and equally helps them build stronger, more authentic connections by giving value sincerely. The next powerful force shaping human decisions is commitment and consistency. People want to act consistently with what they have previously said or done because inconsistency feels like a threat to their identity. When a person commits, even in a small way, they feel internal pressure to follow through. This principle explains why saying yes publicly increases the likelihood of continued support and why companies encourage customers to pledge, join, or opt in through small early commitments. Political campaigns use this brilliantly. Once someone signs a petition or publicly posts support online, they become more likely to vote, donate, or advocate because their identity begins to align with their initial action. In modern markets, brands leverage micro-commitments to build long-term customers. A fitness app that gets someone to commit to a simple habit, like walking 3 minutes a day, knows that the internal desire for consistency will push the person to gradually take bigger actions, tracking steps, joining challenges, or upgrading subscriptions. YouTube creators who ask viewers to comment your thoughts or write one goal you have this week understand the psychology. Once a viewer engages publicly, their investment increases. This principle shows up even in social justice movements. where small acts like sharing a post or signing a digital pledge lead many individuals to become active supporters over time. Commitment is also the backbone of personal growth. Individuals who articulate their goals publicly, through social media, accountability groups, or journals, feel a powerful drive to live up to their stated intentions. This is why goal-setting workshops often ask participants to write down their objectives or speak them aloud. The externalization locks the goal into identity. When people begin to view themselves through a certain lens, leader, student, athlete, entrepreneur, they unconsciously shape their actions to align with that identity. Cialdini's insight reveals that human behavior is rarely random. It is anchored in the desire to appear coherent, responsible, and stable to ourselves and others. Layered onto these forces is the principle of social proof, which reflects a deeply human need for belonging and certainty. In ambiguous situations, people look to others to determine how to behave. This instinct is ancient. Early humans relied on group behavior to identify safe food, avoid danger, or navigate unfamiliar environments. Even today, when someone sees others staring at the sky, they instinctively look up too. The behavior is automatic. Social proof runs the modern world. Trending hashtags, viral videos, bestseller lists, ratings, testimonials, and reviews all serve as signals that something is valuable, safe, or culturally accepted. Recent digital behavior showcases this principle with striking clarity. When a video gains millions of views, viewers unconsciously assume it is worth watching. Products with thousands of high ratings appear more trustworthy than those with only a few. Restaurants with long lines seem superior even when the difference in quality is small. Even financial decisions are affected. Cryptocurrency booms, meme stock surges, and NFT crazes were fueled not by logic, but by collective behavior. People trusted the crowd, and the crowd often trusted itself without understanding why. But social proof also operates more subtly. In classrooms, if a few students engage enthusiastically, others follow. In workplaces, when leaders demonstrate vulnerability, curiosity, or enthusiasm, teams adopt the same tone. Charitable organizations highlight the number of donors not just to show impact, but to signal that giving is the social norm. Even global public health campaigns rely heavily on social proof, using community adoption to influence individual behavior. This principle illustrates how powerfully humans depend on collective cues to navigate complex environments. All three principles, reciprocity, commitment, and social proof, interlock in fascinating ways. When someone receives value, makes a small commitment, and sees others supporting the same action, their emotional investment skyrockets. Successful social movements, viral brands, and influential leaders understand this instinctively, combining multiple psychological triggers to create massive momentum. Cialdini's brilliance lies in revealing how these forces operate naturally in the human mind, and how easily they can be harnessed ethically or misused dangerously. Another profound force that shapes influence is the human tendency to obey authority, not because authority figures are inherently wise, but because deferring to authority reduces cognitive load and provides a sense of safety. From childhood, people are conditioned to listen to parents, teachers, experts, and leaders. This instinct helps maintain order and allows societies to function efficiently. Trusting the judgment of skilled individuals prevents chaos. But this same instinct can be exploited when an authority figure uses credibility, real or fabricated, to push people toward decisions they would not make independently. In today's world, the symbols of authority have expanded beyond traditional roles. A lab coat, a verified social media badge, a celebrity endorsement, a large following, or an official-sounding title can trigger compliance even when the authority is superficial. Many consumers trust health advice from influencers with no medical background simply because they appear confident, polished, or popular. Similarly, scams often succeed by imitating authority. Fake bank emails, counterfeit government letters, and fraudulent investment experts manipulate people by mimicking the tone and imagery of legitimate institutions. The lesson here is not to distrust authority, but to evaluate it carefully, understanding that psychological triggers are powerful even when logic disagrees. Cialdini illustrates how authority shapes decisions in workplaces too. Employees often agree with managers or leaders, even when they privately disagree, because authority pressures them to conform. This dynamic influences innovation, ethics, and organizational culture. The most successful companies balance authority with psychological safety, encouraging employees to question decisions respectfully rather than obey blindly. Leaders who cultivate humility, transparency, and collaboration use their authority constructively, guiding rather than controlling. In politics, authority is expressed through charisma, symbolism, and narrative. Leaders who appear confident, articulate, and decisive often gain trust regardless of policy details. Citizens interpret strong presentation as competence, showing that emotional cues frequently outweigh rational ones. When leaders communicate clearly, demonstrate consistency, and project stability, they influence public perception even in turbulent times. Understanding this allows people to evaluate authority figures more critically and avoid being swayed solely by surface signals. As these principles intertwine, a clearer picture emerges. Human behavior is less driven by pure logic and more by deep emotional impulses shaped over generations. Influence works because it aligns with how the mind naturally processes information. Recognizing this enhances personal freedom because awareness breaks automatic reactions. When someone can identify the tug of reciprocity, the pull of social proof, or the weight of authority, they gain the power to pause, evaluate, and choose intentionally. The next principle, which plays a significant role in global marketing and interpersonal dynamics, is liking, the tendency to say yes to people we like, admire, or feel connected to. People are influenced more by those who resemble them, complement them, share common interests, or project warmth and authenticity. Whether in politics, business, or everyday life, individuals gravitate toward those who make them feel seen and valued. Liking shapes negotiations, friendships, hiring decisions, and purchase behavior. Companies use attractive branding, relatable storytelling, and charismatic spokespeople to tap into this instinct. In the digital world, influencers thrive almost entirely on the principle of liking. Followers trust their recommendations not because of expertise, but because they feel a personal connection. Brands collaborate with creators who mirror the values and lifestyles of their target audience, leveraging relatability to drive decisions. Even in customer service, employees who communicate with empathy, humor, and warmth achieve better outcomes because consumers respond positively when they feel emotionally understood. Cialdini's insight reveals that influence often begins not with facts, but with connection. This dynamic also shapes interpersonal relationships. People often agree with friends more readily than with strangers, even when the suggestion is the same. A recommendation from a trusted peer can persuade more effectively than a detailed argument from an unfamiliar expert. In workplaces, managers who build rapport and show genuine appreciation secure stronger cooperation from their teams than those who rely solely on authority. The psychology is simple yet profound. People trust those who make them feel good, respected, and understood. Finally, the principle of scarcity underscores how humans value things more when they appear limited. When opportunities feel rare, people act quickly, often emotionally. Scarcity creates urgency, magnifies desire, and triggers fear of loss. This explains why limited time offers, exclusive access, countdown timers, and limited edition products exert such powerful influence. The psychology is not new. Ancient markets used scarcity to drive demand long before modern marketing refined the tactic. Today, scarcity rules digital culture. Online ticket sales that announce only 2 seats left, e-commerce stores that highlight low stock, and social media apps that promote limited-time experiences all exploit scarcity to accelerate decisions. Even relationships are affected. Individuals may value someone more when they fear losing them, or pursue opportunities more aggressively when they think time is running out. Scarcity also explains real-world behaviors like panic buying during crises, competitive academic admissions, and the massive appeal of exclusive memberships. Scarcity interacts with the other principles in fascinating ways. When a scarce resource is endorsed by authority, validated by social proof, or offered by someone we like, its influence intensifies dramatically. People may rush to purchase, join, or commit because the emotional pressure overwhelms rational thought. Recognizing scarcity as a psychological trigger empowers individuals to differentiate between genuine urgency and manufactured pressure. Cialdini's work, when woven together, forms a portrait of human behavior grounded in empathy and insight. These principles, reciprocity, commitment, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity, shape nearly every interaction we experience. Understanding them grants individuals the power to build deeper relationships, make wiser decisions, lead more effectively, and protect themselves from manipulation. Human behavior is shaped far more by subtle psychological triggers than by deliberate reasoning. And as Cialdini unfolds the next sequence of principles, it becomes clear that people rarely respond to persuasion with calm analysis. Instead, they react through deeply rooted automatic patterns that marketers, leaders, politicians, influencers, and even ordinary individuals use intuitively or intentionally. The first of these patterns lies in our tendency to look outward when uncertain, to scan the behavior of others as if their actions contain secret instructions for our own. People assume that if many others are doing something, it must be wise, safe, or correct, and this instinct becomes strongest when we lack clarity about a situation. You can see this vividly during emergencies. When a fire alarm rings in a crowded building, individuals often freeze momentarily, not because they don't understand the potential danger, but because they are scanning the faces of others to judge whether evacuation is truly necessary. If the crowd remains calm, individuals stay put, sometimes fatally so. This is the nature of social proof. Modern life offers even clearer illustrations. When a restaurant in Lagos, New York, or London consistently shows a line outside, even skeptics assume the food must be exceptional. When a new investment trend like cryptocurrency surged into mainstream awareness between 2020 and 2022, millions of people worldwide entered the market not because they deeply understood blockchain, but because so many others seemed to be prospering. Social proof magnifies itself. The more people join, the more irresistible the influence becomes. The same applies to digital platforms. TikTok's explosive growth during the pandemic was fueled not merely by its features, but by repeated exposure to other people using it. Once friends, coworkers, or celebrities join a platform, it becomes harder for an individual to resist. In this way, uncertainty creates a vacuum that the behavior of others easily fills. But the phenomenon deepens when similarity enters the equation. We are especially persuaded by actions taken by people who resemble us, people of similar age, background, lifestyle, or struggle. This is why testimonials from relatable individuals can outweigh technical explanations. A Nigerian youth deciding whether to take an online course might be unmoved by a professor's praise, but strongly influenced by a fellow student describing how it changed their career. An American mother might ignore advertisements about a new learning app, but feel convinced when a parent with similar challenges speaks about its usefulness. Even in global civic movements, people tend to join protests, charity campaigns, or community efforts when they see individuals from their own demographic taking part. In other words, the crowd persuades most effectively when the crowd looks like you. This flow of influence naturally transitions into another principle. We are more likely to comply with people we genuinely like. And likability itself is not accidental. It is manufactured through factors so subtle that we often fail to notice them shaping our decisions. Physical attractiveness exerts one such powerful effect. Attractive individuals are perceived not only as more socially desirable, but also as smarter, more trustworthy, and more competent. Even though none of these conclusions logically follow from appearance alone, they shape daily life. A charismatic, well-groomed salesperson tends to outperform a disheveled expert. Influencers on Instagram and TikTok leverage aesthetics not just for vanity, but because beauty subconsciously amplifies perceived credibility. When an attractive fitness coach recommends supplements, followers often believe the advice is grounded in expertise rather than the halo effect created by looks. Yet attractiveness is only one aspect of likability. Similarity acts here as well. People warm quickly to those who mirror their interests, language patterns, humor, or values. If someone speaks your dialect, enjoys the same music, or shares cultural references, your defenses soften. Politicians frequently use this in America and across the globe, strategically positioning themselves as one of the people. They wear local attire, reference shared hardships, or highlight relatable childhood experiences. Their goal is not to boast, but to create an identity bridge between themselves and the audience. Once people feel a sense of kinship, persuasion follows with far less friction. Compliments intensify the effect. Even though individuals consciously know that compliments can be strategic, the emotional impact rarely diminishes. A store attendant in Abuja telling a customer, "This color suits you beautifully," increases the likelihood of a purchase. A car salesman in Los Angeles praising someone's taste or knowledge triggers instant rapport. Humans crave affirmation, and the person who provides it becomes disproportionately influential. Compliments bypass skepticism by appealing to self-worth, making likability a more potent tool than logic. Proximity, interaction, and cooperation further deepen liking. Familiarity breeds comfort. People tend to prefer those they encounter frequently, especially in positive or cooperative settings. Workplaces, group projects, study circles, and communities often produce lasting bonds simply because repeated contact creates a sense of emotional safety. Brands use this dynamic too. Companies like Apple, Nike, and Samsung maintain strong followings partly because consumers interact with their ecosystem repeatedly. Updates, events, packaging, friendly store environments, all reinforcing connection. Even when a brand makes mistakes, likability can soften criticism, granting second chances. Association plays its own role in shaping influence. When someone is consistently surrounded by positive experiences, music you enjoy, humor that relaxes you, visuals that inspire you, their message becomes more compelling. Advertisers pair products with attractive lifestyle imagery to transfer emotions to the item itself. Musicians collaborate with popular athletes to borrow likability. Public speakers use humor not only to entertain, but to soften resistance. The mind merges positive feelings with the source that triggered them, creating loyalty that logic alone cannot reproduce. But likability only explains part of the persuasive landscape. Another powerful force emerges through authority, our ingrained tendency to obey people we perceive as experts, leaders, or figures of legitimate power. Society trains individuals from childhood to trust doctors, teachers, clergy, and uniformed officials. Consequently, authority triggers compliance even when the commands or recommendations deserve scrutiny. Cialdini references classic psychological experiments where participants obeyed authoritative instructions that violated their moral judgment, illustrating how deeply authority is wired into human behavior. In today's world, authority presents itself in nuanced forms. Titles like doctor, engineer, professor, and CEO carry enormous persuasive weight, especially in places like Nigeria where professional titles are badges of honor. An individual bearing the title barrister is often granted instant respect and credibility even outside legal matters. In the United States, medical professionals increasingly influence public opinions on wellness, vaccines, and diet through podcasts and social media, not necessarily because audiences verify expertise, but because the credentials alone command trust. Visual symbols of authority matter just as much. A person in a lab coat, even an actor in a commercial, automatically appears more knowledgeable. A sharply dressed consultant exudes competence before speaking a word. High-end offices, luxury cars, expensive accessories, and curated professional environments amplify perceived status. These signals shape business negotiations, political campaigns, and even interpersonal relationships. The perception of authority often becomes more persuasive than the actual substance behind it. Just as authority motivates compliance, scarcity triggers urgency. The fear of losing something valuable is more compelling than the hope of gaining something new. People place disproportionate value on what appears rare, exclusive, or fleeting. Limited time offers, limited edition products, countdown timers, and fast-selling inventory all exploit this instinct. Each technique activates a primal fear. If you don't act now, the opportunity may vanish forever. This is why Black Friday and Cyber Monday consistently spark frenzied behavior in American malls and online marketplaces. The deals themselves may not be extraordinary, but the illusion of scarcity creates a psychological frenzy. When Clubhouse first launched as invite-only, the scarcity of access elevated it to a global trend almost overnight. People value what is hard to obtain, even if they are unsure why they want it. Cryptocurrency mint drops, sneaker releases, and exclusive tech beta tests follow the same pattern. Scarcity confers prestige, and prestige fuels desire. Scarcity also manifests socially. Exclusive groups, premium memberships, VIP lounges, and closed professional networks generate appeal not merely through features, but through restricted access. People want to be part of something others cannot easily join. Even in personal relationships or negotiations, individuals become more desirable when they demonstrate independence, unavailability, or selectiveness. The mind interprets rarity as value, and the value influences choices. Through these interconnected forces, social proof, likability, authority, and scarcity, Cialdini shows that human beings operate less like rational calculators and more like instinct-driven creatures navigating an increasingly complex world. Each principle flows naturally into the next because they all tap into deep evolutionary wiring. Our need to belong, our desire for acceptance, our respect for hierarchy, and our fear of missing out. These principles shape consumer behavior, political allegiance, financial decisions, and interpersonal dynamics across global cultures. Understanding them does not merely help one become more persuasive. It provides a shield against manipulation. When you recognize that you are drawn to a product not because it is inherently better, but because everyone else is buying it, you regain control over your choices. When you understand that likability can be engineered through flattery or similarity, you can distinguish genuine rapport from strategic charm. When authority signals influence you, you can pause and question whether the title matches the expertise. And when scarcity pressures you to take impulsive action, you can step back and evaluate whether the urgency is real or manufactured. As we move beyond the fundamental triggers of influence, it becomes evident that these forces are not isolated. They interact, overlap, and amplify one another in ways that shape behavior on both small and massive scales. Understanding the interplay between these forces is essential not only for personal awareness, but for creating meaningful, ethical impact in leadership, marketing, social activism, and everyday human interaction. Consider a campaign that combines social proof, scarcity, and likability. A nonprofit organization may showcase a long list of existing donors, social proof. Emphasize that matching donations are available only for a limited time, scarcity, and highlight stories of relatable, compelling individuals benefiting from their work, liking. The result is often an exponential increase in engagement, not because the organization has created a stronger argument, but because it has aligned with the psychological tendencies that guide human decision-making. Cialdini demonstrates that influence is especially potent in times of uncertainty and stress. During ambiguous situations, people's reliance on shortcuts increases because the cognitive load is higher and the need for security is urgent. For example, during the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic, social proof became evident in behaviors ranging from mask wearing to stockpiling groceries. Individuals who saw neighbors and friends taking certain actions were far more likely to mimic them, even in the absence of rational analysis. Governments and public health organizations leveraged this understanding to normalize behaviors through media campaigns, strategically showing citizens following recommended protocols. Those campaigns exemplified how influence principles, when applied ethically, can guide large populations toward beneficial outcomes. The interplay of commitment and consistency also emerges more vividly in the context of modern technology. Social media platforms exploit this principle extensively. When a user publicly likes a post, comments on a discussion, or shares an opinion, they are more likely to continue engaging in ways that align with their initial actions. The public nature of these commitments creates a subtle internal pressure to maintain consistency. For instance, an individual who tweets support for climate action may feel compelled to continue sharing articles, attending events, or donating, even when personal incentives are minimal. Similarly, companies cultivate micro-commitments with customers. Subscribing to a newsletter, completing a survey, or joining a loyalty program primes them for subsequent purchases. The combination of commitment and social proof in digital environments magnifies engagement far beyond what traditional advertising achieves. Ethical application of these principles becomes a defining factor in sustainable influence. The same forces that can generate sales, votes, or compliance can also manipulate, coerce, or exploit if wielded without regard for integrity. Consider the example of high-pressure sales tactics that emphasize scarcity or authority without providing genuine value. While they may generate short-term gains, such approaches erode trust, damage reputations, and provoke backlash. In contrast, ethical influence focuses on creating real benefits for both parties. A skilled negotiator, for instance, uses knowledge of human psychology to structure agreements that satisfy shared interests rather than exploiting compliance reflexes. Similarly, a charitable organization can maximize donations by applying influence principles transparently, demonstrating social proof and urgency while ensuring donors understand the impact of their contributions. Influence extends beyond consumer behavior and organizational strategy into the very fabric of human relationships. In families, romantic partnerships, and friendships, understanding the principles of reciprocity, consistency, liking, and social proof can foster deeper trust and cooperation. Parents who model generosity, empathy, and reliability cultivate reciprocal behaviors in children. Couples who maintain consistent, supportive actions strengthen bonds and reduce conflict. Friends who express genuine admiration, share common values, and create shared experiences leverage the principles of liking and social proof to reinforce connection. In each context, influence is not manipulation but a framework for guiding interactions toward mutual benefit. Authority and expertise also play crucial roles in shaping professional and societal outcomes. In the workplace, employees often comply with directives from leaders not solely due to rational assessment, but because of perceived authority. Leaders who combine knowledge, credibility, and transparency inspire genuine adherence, while those who rely purely on positional power risk disengagement or covert resistance. Globally, the COVID-19 pandemic illustrated both the power and peril of authority. Countries where citizens trusted health authorities and followed expert guidance saw more effective containment. Conversely, where authority was questioned or misused, compliance faltered and outcomes worsened. The lesson is clear. Authority gains influence not through coercion, but through perceived competence and trustworthiness. Scarcity, when combined with these other principles, demonstrates remarkable psychological potency. Humans instinctively assign higher value to what is rare or in limited supply, and this instinct can drive both rational and irrational decisions. Limited time offers, exclusive memberships, and finite resources trigger urgency and motivate action. In digital markets, early access programs, limited edition product releases, and countdown timers leverage scarcity to amplify engagement. Even social and cultural phenomena demonstrate scarcity's effect. Access to prestigious educational programs, invitation-only networks, or sought-after events often commands higher attention and participation simply because access is restricted. Scarcity intertwines with social proof, commitment, and authority to create cascading influence, especially in highly connected, fast-moving environments. Cialdini's research underscores the idea that influence is not inherently manipulative, but becomes unethical when applied without respect for autonomy, transparency, or mutual benefit. By understanding these psychological levers, individuals gain self-awareness and agency. For example, someone who recognizes the pull of social proof may pause before following the crowd in investments, purchases, or public behavior. Awareness of reciprocity can help individuals maintain boundaries, avoiding undue obligations from unsolicited favors. Knowledge of scarcity prevents impulsive actions driven by fear of loss. In professional and personal contexts alike, such awareness transforms susceptibility into strategic insight. Modern technology magnifies both the potential and risk of influence. Algorithms curate social proof in real time, presenting users with content that aligns with trends, popularity, and engagement metrics. Influencers leverage liking, similarity, and authority to guide consumer behavior at scale. E-commerce platforms highlight scarcity through inventory counts and limited-time promotions, while social networks reinforce commitment and consistency through public interactions. Understanding these dynamics allows individuals to navigate digital landscapes with intentionality rather than reflexive compliance. Ethical practitioners, in turn, can harness these same dynamics to create value, foster trust, and inspire positive action. Influence also operates within cross-cultural and global contexts, where norms, values, and expectations vary, but the underlying psychological principles remain consistent. Reciprocity, commitment, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity manifest universally, though the expression may differ. In multinational corporations, leaders who recognize cultural variations in communication and authority can implement influence ethically and effectively across geographies. Similarly, global social movements rely on social proof and reciprocity, adjusted for local norms, to mobilize participants. Understanding influence in a global context thus requires sensitivity to both human psychology and cultural nuance, enabling strategies that resonate while respecting diversity. As Cialdini emphasizes, the ultimate power of influence lies in its subtlety. Influence does not operate through overt coercion or force. It works through the alignment of human tendencies with environmental cues, interpersonal signals, and social norms. Individuals who recognize this can navigate life with greater autonomy. Leaders can inspire without manipulating, and organizations can cultivate lasting loyalty and ethical engagement. From daily transactions to world-changing initiatives, the principles of influence are both pervasive and profound. Awareness, ethical application, and intentionality transform these forces from mechanisms of control into tools for understanding, connection, and positive impact. The combined understanding of reciprocity, commitment, social proof, liking, authority, and scarcity forms a comprehensive framework for interpreting human behavior. Each principle reinforces the others. Reciprocated favors create trust that amplifies compliance. Consistent commitments align with public behaviors, reinforcing social proof. Liking enhances receptivity to authority. Scarcity intensifies urgency and emotional response. Together, these dynamics illuminate why humans often act predictably despite believing themselves to be autonomous and rational. They also reveal pathways for harnessing influence in ways that are mutually beneficial, ethically sound, and socially constructive. In daily life, the principles play out in subtle and profound ways. A manager using social proof might highlight team successes to inspire others. A teacher applying consistency might ask students to commit publicly to a learning goal. A parent modeling reciprocity and generosity shapes children who are empathetic and cooperative. Brands leverage scarcity, authority, and liking to create loyal customers, while activists use social proof and commitment to mobilize communities. Across all domains, influence is both a mirror reflecting human tendencies and a lever enabling intentional guidance of behavior. Ultimately, Cialdini's work demonstrates that influence is not about manipulation in the negative sense, but about understanding how humans respond to the social, emotional, and psychological environment. Recognizing these principles empowers individuals to make informed decisions, foster trust, navigate complexity, and lead effectively. Influence is woven into the fabric of human life, from the personal to the global, shaping the choices, actions, and behaviors that define our individual and collective existence. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and join us for more wisdom that fuels growth.